behind me is one of the famous Pictish stones of Scotland. Now, we're not too far from Inverness, we're near Dingwall. This one here is called the Eagle Stone, and this is very interesting. I'll give you the story about it, traditionally the Pictish story. It's got an eagle and it's got a horseshoe carved on it, and it was moved up from the Strath Valley nearby to this position here. What's interesting to me is the fact that it's got a link with giants, and this goes back long before the Picts, probably to Neolithic or Bronze Age times. This is probably a Bronze Age or Neolithic stone originally, but I want to read you this passage that we feature in our book from about this particular stone. I'll just read it to you, then I'll give you the quote details afterwards. Near the old church of Votadini is a standing stone known as the Eagle Stone. Once there lived in the hills nearby a giant of remarkable strength who loved putting the stone. Indeed, he is reputed to have been the originator of that sport. In those days, some of the Fane lived on Knockfarrel, and the giant challenged Fionn to a stone throwing competition. Fionn refused, but offered to match his dwarf against the stone putter, as he was called. The giant agreed to this. When he and his dwarf took station at Knockfarrel, the giant picked up the Eagle Stone, which 3 men could not lift, and flung it across the strath onto his green knoll, where it stuck fast. In proof of the truth of this story, the marks of an enormous finger and thumb are shown still visible on one of the stones. So whether it's this stone or another stone, we don't know, but we're going to have a quick look at it and we'll see. But this is one of many stories that Donald Mackenzie, who was a famous historian, a folklorist of ancient Scotland, put together. This whole area around Cromarty is interesting. He also shares this other story which kind of links with this. 2 boulders lying on the beach near Cromarty were reputed to have been flung by the giant on the hill of Struy, called Giltras in Cromarty in the parish of Editon. There are giants on the 3 hills near Inverness known as Torvian, Dunane and Craig Fadric. They are said to throw a stone hammer from one to the other each morning. And again, this links with all the other stories around Britain of stone throwing, hammer throwing, and different games of quoits and other games of throwing these stones around, which links with geometric significance in the landscape, i.e. the placement of stones to mark a survey, but also to work with the energies and bring harmony to the land, which is some of the traditions seem to point at this, especially related to these giants. It's quite hard to make out the symbols on it right now, but I'll show you some clean images so you can get a good sense of it, because obviously we need a bit of light, sunlight coming in at an angle to see it properly. But I'll show you some old illustrations, some antiquarian pictures, and some other photos to give you a sense of what's really carved on this beautiful piece of artwork on this particular monolith. So whether it was this stone or another stone that has these thumb and finger marks in it is unclear, when you can see markings all around it that could represent the thumb and finger of a giant. And but we can't really see too much here. It goes another foot or so in the ground apparently. And I'm just very, very interested in this, because the fact is we've got a Pictish stone linked with giants, but whether this tradition is from before the Picts, who were around from 300 AD onwards to about 900 AD, is really interesting. Officially, this dates to around 700 AD, which is actually one of the earliest class 1, they call it, Pict stones. And these are some of the earliest stones that were created by this particular culture here in ancient Scotland. Some of the other stories are linked with this stone as well. It's been moved from its previous site. We know it was lower in the Strath Valley, where local tradition says that it marks the grave of Munro clansmen killed in a battle in the 15th century. Another local legend concerns the Brahman seer, who is said to have prophesied in the 17th century that if the Eagle Stone fell 3 times, ships would be able to sail up to Strathpeffer, which is this area here, and be fastened to the stone, whatever that means. However, the stone is said to have fallen twice already. So one more time, and ships are going to be able to come up here and strap themselves to the stone. This is one of the stones. We're going to look at a few more while we're in Scotland, but I just wanted to show you this because of the giant association and the fact it could suggest it could be a geomantic marker in the landscape of ancient Scotland. So this is the first Pictish stone we've seen on our Scottish and Lewis journey when we've been around the islands. We've been in very northern Scotland around Inverness, going down to Perth and Glasgow and Edinburgh as well. But this is the most northerly one we've seen so far. We know there are others. There are many in this area. There are many further north, all around Inverness, north, south, east and west of it. And we're going to see a few. We're going to see some in some specialised museums as well. But just wanted to introduce you to this beautiful stone because it shows you just one of the styles. There are many different styles of the ancient Picts and their beautiful stone carving techniques. So we're just outside St Clement's Parish Church of Dingwall. Just inside the gate here is one of the most important Pictish stones of all, although it's extremely badly weathered. Again, it's a class 1 Pictish stone, much like the one we just saw, the eagle stone. And all you can really see is this crescent and a couple of kind of spirals. So let's get in and take a look. So we're just heading into the gates now. We're going to have a quick look. You can see it right away. It's right there. So let's have a look on both sides. Yeah, and clearly you can't really see pretty much anything on it. You can see a sort of circular shape, like a kind of curve, sort of classic stone. We'll show you the images clearly, but I just wanted to show you this, that these are still available to see. It's got cut marks on it as well by the looks of it. Here you can see kind of spirals at the top. So I'm going to get my torch out and we're going to try and see some detail here. So bear with me. And you can just see there, so you can sort of see as a kind of spiral shape. It kind of joins up with this one here. If we do it from above, you might be able to see it better. And you can see that there. Yeah, you can pretty much see it quite well actually. And you see the way that, so again, the symbols on here are what are from class 1, they say. So much like the eagle stone. Now there's not much else on here we can really see, although we did see something down the bottom here. And then down here, down at the bottom, that's where you start seeing some other shapes occur. Down here, you see, so that line going across there. Very interesting, very crystalline stone. So we just had a quick look at the Pictish stone here in Dingwall churchyard, which is not too far from Inverness. It's kind of like a major town here, and we're going to keep looking. There's a couple of museums we're going to look at, and we'll give you an update on everything we see. Now, we're not going to see all of them, but we'll show you some images of all the ones that are out there. But yeah, just wanted to highlight the fact that there's a whole other culture here from about the 3rd, 4th century AD onwards, who are a powerful ruling elite. They formed into clans. There's many accounts of burials that have been unearthed where they're of giant stature, which is really interesting to us. They were warrior class, they tattooed their bodies, they covered themselves in blue kind of pigment. And so this is part of their culture. They may have even been responsible for the vitrified hill forts, where there's an unusual kind of glassy stone we find at them as well. But anyway, we hope you enjoyed this quick visit here in Dingwall churchyard. So here we are at Perth Museum, and we have another amazing Pictish stone. Now this was St Maddo's churchyard this came from, and this looks like it was an ancient standing stone repurposed by the Picts a few hundred years AD. It's been moved from its original location to preserve it, but you can see a beautiful Celtic cross with all these beautiful different types of carving on it, and animals going up the side. Absolutely amazing. You've got like spirals in the centre there, more strange creatures on it. We'll have a look around the back, there's even more on it. You can see this here, look at this. I have to get quite close up, and you can see like horses, riders, it's like dragons and other creatures going all the way down. Absolutely amazing. So again, you get more Pictish stones, this time in Perth Museum. So on the reverse of the stone are what appear to be 3 cloaked and hooded horsemen, probably priests. There are below that is 3 Pictish symbols, a crescent and a V-rod, a Pictish beast, and a much worn double disc and Z-rod, which are similar to the illustrations right here. There are other examples like this found at Dunfermline, Fowlis, Westall, Magle and Rossi Priory. What they mean is a whole other matter, but let's have a closer look. Now the front of it is just got classic Celtic design. You've got the biting beasts that are also in the Lindisfarne Gospels, and you can just see the beautiful styling all the way through it. So we're just looking up the back of the stone here. We just had a brief description of it. It's hard to see anything, but there's the 3 kind of robed horsemen going up to the top there. We'll just come down it again. So you've got 3 robed horsemen, priestly type figures, then you've got some of the classic symbols kind of below it going down towards the bottom. Just arrived here at the McManus Dundee Museum, mainly here to see the Scottish stone spheres, but there's some interesting Pictish stones here we'll come to see as well, so we're going to go in now and take a look. So we have more Pictish stones on display here at Dundee Museum. This is a very cool one. This is found at Aberlemno. It's 1,400 years old on Flemington Farm, Angus, and as a horseshoe and a beast on it. It's made of old red sandstone, so it's got this very kind of rough hewn feel to it, very deep incisions. This is found at Strathmartins, and again it's 1,400 years old, and again it has a great beast with a crescent and V-rod on it as well, which you can see in the design right here. These are later looking stones, but again this is a Pictish stone, and this is, it's got stuff on the back of it, you can see both sides there. This is 1,300 years old from Teeling Church, Angus, with Christian and pagan motifs, and you can sort of see the back of it just there in the mirror. You can see the main stone here close up. So this one is from Strathmartin. It dates to about 1,200 years old, and it's pretty amazing because it's got like this classic serpent motif and spirals all the way along it. If you're going close, you can see spirals kind of going along one side of it. Then we have this classic serpent motif, which I absolutely love. So the Picts were also very obsessed by the serpent. This actually looks like 2 serpents intertwining around each other, much like we find laid out in the Great Avebury complex in Wiltshire. This is a beautiful piece. This is a classic kind of Pictish Celtic cross symbolism. You can see all the different features like the angelic figures, serpents and other such things all over this stone. And again on the back we have kind of horse riders, probably the priestly elite, the warriors. This was found 1200, this is dated to 1200 years ago, so about 800 AD from Benvie churchyard. We just made our way to Grome House Museum in the whole Cromarty area, and here they have some of the most incredible Pictish stones on the planet. Let's take a look. Here we are at the Grome House Museum in Rosmarkie, north of Inverness. And here is some of the most impressive Pictish stones, pretty much on the planet in my opinion. They're beautifully created, they've been preserved here. And some of the, I mean, the one behind me here is just incredible. It just looks like it's come from Pukara or Tiwanaku in Bolivia or Peru, and even Malta. I mean, some of the carvings on here are so reminiscent of Tiwanaku and Pukara and Chirapa and other places that it makes me wonder, with the Scottish stone sphere that was discovered around Lake Titicaca, is there a connection here? There's something strange going on. So we're going to have a good look at all of the stones in here while we've got our slot here for 30 minutes. And supposedly this was a fitting for a church, but could have been repurposed. This one here is like what's called a grave slab. Again, we're finding this sort of 3D relief carving. We've got like a door to nowhere, much like we find at Tiwanaku. Most of the length of the slab is missing. This is just one part of it. This is the top right side being trimmed. Very, very interesting. There's like a diagonal cross there. Other features, you've got other humanoid features on either side, like a spiral there. Absolutely fascinating. Now this one here is just, this is like harking back to the earlier traditions of ancient Scotland and Ireland, where you've got like spirals, double spirals or quadruple spirals in this case. And this is very interesting. This is supposedly a shrine at the Ross Marquis Church, and it may have been where a saint's bones were said to have been. On one side of the shrine, actually, the saint's bones were said to have been buried, which is really interesting. And that's linked with Saint Curadan, who was one of the bishops who witnessed Saint Adomnan's law of innocence in 697 AD. This was actually a declaration of rights for the safety of women and children during warfare. And it was signed by various representatives of the church from across the country. But this symbol here is what we find all over the place. We also have like the chicana kind of going down the side next to these beautiful spirals. This is interesting as well. So it shows mathematical features of these designs regarding square roots and other things. So they were very much up on their geometry and maths when it came to kind of designing and carving these stones. And here we have information about a geometric formulae. And it said a compass and straight edge were used to create a series of geometric rectangles, proportions of which can be expressed as square roots. Insular art is commonly derived from rectangles up to square 5. As Romarchi, it goes up to square 20. So we have very complicated, interesting geometries here. This one has been titled Another Fine Slab. And look at the beautiful kind of Celtic stonework there, which is very similar again to what we find in South America. This appears to represent kind of people, or certainly the bottom of people anyway. And it says on the thing, 2 men walk from left to right across this fragment. So who were these depicting, and why is someone on higher ground almost hovering, levitating above the one below it? And you can see that there just by the feet, lower than on the right there, higher than on the right there. And again we have this piece here. Apparently this is of surprising importance. So this is a very beautiful piece. You can sort of see the shaping down both sides. There's a bit in shadow there. Also on here there's various features. Apparently there were mistakes made on this one. That's not good. Again, this is another grave marker from the 800s AD. Again, we have the spiral carvings with the top of a Celtic cross just in position there. These are very interesting. I don't know if you can see this. Down here, we've got lines going down right to, look, that's a chicana. That is absolutely amazing. There's a chicana cross that we find at Tiwanaku. That is bizarre, look at that. You could just, if you didn't know, you could say this was from Tiwanaku. you could say that was as well, with the spirals. And these ones here, look at them. I could be in a Tiwanaku museum and you wouldn't know the difference. So look at this one, this is the main stone in the museum, all down the side here. You can see beautiful carvings. Now this was, we were just described this by the curator here, that this was actually laid flat and walked on, and it was part of the walkway kind of into the main site. But this is the beautiful side, look at this. So you've got the beautiful kind of half moon at the top. You've got other symbolism like a spear, knotwork, kind of, oh, it's absolutely amazing. This again, you could just imagine this was from Pukara or Tiwanaku, ancient Peru and Bolivian. It was broken into 3 pieces, it got put back together, it was used to walk on, so one side of it's worn down. But there are some features on it I just want to show you in more detail. At the top part of the stone are 2 sets of Pictish symbols, one above the other. The upper pair were crescents with V-shaped rods. The lower part is a double disc with a Z. There's a double-sided comb set within the lower part of the Z rod. On either side of the base of the V rod, the lowest symbol is a mirror and a ladle-like object. So we're seeing all that just up here in the top part of the main site. There's patterns, there's Pictish kind of Celtic design, and then there's an equal armed cross, which you can see down here. A deep border, and there's a key pattern around it, and there's also, we have the bosses here, we have the bosses also up there, kind of like what we find on the stone spheres, also what we find on some stones at Tiwanaku and Pukara and other places. So it's generally an amazing design. And then this key pattern down here is typical of Lake Pictish design. So these may have been part of a stone tomb on either side of a stone tomb in the church, but you can see the 2 different designs. We have this kind of thing we find, which to me looks very, very South American. Then we have this, which has got that sort of South American feel, but also it's got the spirals with it as well. So JJ's informed me that these designs are called meanders. But, you know, we must remember that there's a huge amount of information because partly of the geometry, there's a little board here about it. And it goes into detail regarding how to use a compass and straight edged. You can use that to create these different kind of designs. Also, it includes the golden section. Again, these are traits, these are design specs of the Neolithic and in other parts of the world. So it's almost like these traditions are quite widespread when it comes to understanding the intricacies of the Pictish stonework. We have an altar cross here. You can't really see it too well, but it's just like a classic kind of Celtic cross. We have this other part of this grave slab, which has the chincana on it. This is the other side of it. Overall, this is one hell of a cool place. If you're interested in ancient stonework of Scotland and how potentially it connects with other parts of the world. So we've got some other pieces here just outside the museum, which obviously were from the church, which may be that one over there. There's some artwork created by local people, you know, bringing this kind of magical Pictish vibe alive. So we're just leaving the Grome House Museum, and I must admit, it's some of the most incredible Pictish stone artwork I've ever seen. It's on par, you know, with what we find in ancient South America, Cusco and other places. It's very bizarre. The fact is, this is the tip of the iceberg. The Picts were a very unusual race. They were masters clearly of geometry, mathematics, stone carving techniques. Some of them were thought to be giants. They would tattoo their bodies And so to see some of their brilliant stonework is such a treat. So if you get a chance, check out the Grome House Museum. It's one of the most impressive museums I've ever been to.